They paid for my sister's wedding, college, and house. I got socks for Christmas. I published the story and it went viral. I, 29F, was always the difficult one in the family. According to my parents, I was too emotional, too sensitive, too rebellious. Meanwhile, my older brother Ryan, 32M, was the golden boy, straight A's, athlete, charming, always said the right thing. To outsiders, we were the perfect family. But growing up in our house felt like walking on eggshells, especially for me. When Ryan skipped chores, it was because he was busy with school. When I forgot, I was lazy and ungrateful. When he stayed out late, he was social. When I did, I was trouble. The double standard was insane. And if I ever tried to speak up, I was starting drama. I moved out at 18. No big scene, I just left for college and never really came back. We stayed civil. I came home for holidays, sent polite texts, played my role. But that invisible label, the difficult one, followed me everywhere. Meanwhile, Ryan became a golden child turned golden adult. Married a picture-perfect wife, landed a good job in finance, and bought a house near our parents. They bragged about him constantly. I became the other sibling. The one who was always figuring things out. But here's the thing, Ryan isn't who they think he is. He's a liar. A cheater. And after years of biting my tongue, I finally stopped. It all came to a head at my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party. Huge backyard event, catered food, music, the whole deal. Everyone was dressed up, drinking wine, gushing over how perfect Ryan and his wife were. I was at the bar when Liz, an old high school friend of mine, came up. We hadn't seen each other in years, so we caught up casually, until she leaned in and said, "Hey, weird question, is Ryan still married? Because he's been messaging me for months." My stomach dropped. I asked her to show me. She pulled out her phone. DMs, flirty texts. Old photos. Explicit stuff. Timestamped. All while he was still with his wife, who was literally 10 feet away at that moment, laughing with my mom. Liz had no idea he was married until recently. He told her he was in the middle of a divorce. Typical. I thanked her, got her number, and told her I'd deal with it. Now. I could have waited. Pulled Ryan aside. Had a quiet, civilized chat. But no. I've lived in this family long enough to know that quiet doesn't change anything. So I waited until dinner. My parents gave a speech. Then Ryan got up, made some half-fake sentimental toast about family being everything and how proud he was to be part of such a loving home. I stood up next. I smiled. Held my wine glass up. And said, "You know, it's really heartwarming to hear that from you, Ryan. Especially considering you've been cheating on your wife for the last 6 months." Silence. I turned to his wife. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this. But he's been messaging an old friend of mine. I've seen the proof." She looked at me. Then at Ryan. Then back to me. Ryan turned red, stood up, started stammering, saying it wasn't true. So I pulled out my phone, with Liz's texts. Showed his wife. Loud enough for a few people to hear. It was over. She left in tears. My parents were horrified, not at him, but at me. My mom whispered, "Couldn't you have handled this privately?" My dad looked embarrassed, muttering something about ruining the party. I said, "You've let him get away with everything for 32 years. I'm done staying quiet." And I left. It's been 2 weeks. Ryan hasn't reached out. His wife filed for separation. Liz blocked him. My mom sent a passive-aggressive text about airing dirty laundry. My dad hasn't said anything. But you know what? For the first time in years, I don't feel like the scapegoat. I feel free. I spent my whole life being labeled the problem child, when the real problem was that no one wanted to see who Ryan really was. Now they can't unsee it. So, here's the update, and, well, things escalated much faster than I expected. I never intended to make my story public. I just wanted to vent to my close friends. But after that Christmas, I was so hurt, so tired, that I decided to post a quick rant on Reddit in one of the family drama subreddits. I figured it would help me process everything. I wrote about growing up in the shadow of my sister, about how I was never seen as good enough by my parents, and the last straw with the Christmas gifts. I didn't name names, but I didn't have to. Anyone who knows my family could easily piece it together. The next thing I knew, I was staring at my phone, watching the post blow up. It started with a few hundred upvotes, then thousands. Comments flooded in. People could relate. A lot of women, especially, shared similar stories of being the invisible child, while their siblings got everything handed to them. I felt a little less alone. But the real kicker? The story went viral on LinkedIn. A friend of mine who works in social media shared it with a group of women in leadership, and it spread like wildfire. Suddenly, there were articles written about it. Stories about how family favoritism can leave lifelong scars and how equal love isn't always guaranteed in families. That's when my family really started to freak out. First, it was my dad. He called me, not to apologize, but to guilt trip me. Why would you air our dirty laundry in public? Don't you have any respect for us? Do you really think your sister would ever do something like this? I didn't respond at first. I just let the call go to voicemail. When I finally texted back, I said, I don't respect a family that only sees one child. Maybe if you'd loved me half as much as her, I wouldn't have needed to tell the world what's been going on. My mom, she was worse. She tried calling and leaving long-winded voicemail after voicemail. At first, she said I was misunderstanding the situation. We've always supported you, honey. Your father and I, we just thought you'd be okay on your own. You've always been independent, strong. It was the same old excuse they always used when they couldn't justify their actions. Then, when she saw how big the story had gotten, she switched tactics. You've humiliated us. This will be the last time I speak to you unless you apologize. My sister Claire? Well, she went radio silent. But it didn't take long before I started hearing whispers. She reached out to some mutual family friends, making sure to set the record straight. She claimed that I had always been jealous of her, that I always wanted to tear her down, and that I was the one who was selfish. She even went as far as to say that the story was overblown and not completely accurate. Then, my aunt reached out to me. She said she'd been reading through some of the comments on Reddit and LinkedIn. She told me how sorry she was for how I'd been treated. She said, your parents have always had favorites, but I didn't know it was this bad. She even told me about things that happened in the past that I never knew, like how my parents had ignored her kids growing up while lavishing Claire with gifts and attention. She suggested I might want to start going no contact and protect my mental health from them. That's when I knew the narrative had shifted. More family members started reaching out to apologize. Some even admitted they'd noticed the imbalance but didn't know how to bring it up. One cousin admitted she was too scared to speak up, but after seeing the posts online, she realized how wrong it all was. It felt like the universe was finally backing me up. Now, my family is trying to save face. They've been posting publicly about how they want to make things right, using vague language like learning from mistakes and focusing on family healing. But it's too late for that. I don't want their fake apologies. Claire tried to call, but I didn't pick up. The thing is, I'm not mad at her anymore. She's been raised to believe she's better, and she'll probably always think that's true. What I'm really angry about is the years I spent pretending I was okay with being treated like a second-class citizen. I've started therapy again. I'm focusing on my own mental health. And while I'm not going to go out of my way to make my family's life difficult, I am going to focus on my own life. No more toxic Christmases. No more pretending to be okay. So, what happens now? I'm going to keep living my life, focusing on my career, my friends, my husband, and our future. I'm no longer waiting for my parents' approval. And if they want to apologize, they'll have to do it in a way that actually feels genuine, not just because the public is calling them out. To everyone who has reached out, whether you've been in a similar situation or just offered support, thank you. You've reminded me that I'm not alone, and that family doesn't have to mean misery. The next chapter is mine to write, and I'm not turning back. The calm didn't last long. After a few weeks of the public fallout, I started to get calls from family members, mostly apologizing, trying to fix things. They were so sorry for how things went down, how I felt, how I was treated. They all agreed they should have done better. Some of them even admitted they had been complicit by not stepping in sooner. But Ryan, my mom's brother, called me last night and said he wanted to personally apologize for everything. I wasn't expecting it, but after all the emotional overload from the family drama, I decided to hear him out. He insisted we meet for coffee, a real, honest conversation, as he put it. I agreed, though I didn't feel great about it. But when I met him at the cafe, things took a turn for the worse. He started with the typical "I'm sorry for what happened" lines. But then, it got weird. Real weird. He started talking about how he didn't see it at first, but after reading the Reddit post and all the backlash, he finally realized how much damage the favoritism had caused. He apologized for how my parents treated me, but then proceeded to make it about Claire. I know Claire has been hurt by all this too, and I think we all need to rally around her and remind her that she isn't to blame for how your parents acted. She's just as much a victim in all of this. My stomach dropped. I stared at him for a long moment before responding. Are you seriously sitting here, telling me that Claire is the one we need to protect? She's not the victim here, Ryan. She's never been the victim. She's been the one getting everything handed to her while I was ignored, and you're still protecting her? Have you lost your mind? Ryan stammered, then immediately tried to deflect. I didn't mean it like that. I just think maybe we need to focus on healing, and not put all the blame on your parents or Claire. That's when I realized he wasn't really sorry for what happened to me. He was sorry because my story had gone viral, and now he felt awkward about how bad it made him look. But wait, it got worse. As I was about to leave, Ryan pulled out a peace offering, a check for $10,000. I know this won't fix everything, but it's a gesture to show that I'm sorry. For everything. For how things went down with you and Claire. For the favoritism, for the way we treated you. I blinked a few times, trying to process what just happened. A check? After everything that's happened, he thinks money will make it right? I couldn't believe it. The audacity. The insincerity. I snapped. Are you kidding me right now? You think you can just throw money at me and it'll fix everything? I don't want your check, Ryan. I wanted your support, your actual apology, not this desperate attempt to make yourself feel better. This isn't about money, and it never was. Ryan's face turned bright red, and he tried to salvage it. That's not what I meant. It's not just money, it's about trying to make amends. At that point, I stood up, threw the check back onto the table, and said, keep your money. And keep your apology. I'm done. I turned and walked out, and as I was leaving, I heard him shout. You'll regret this, you know. One day, you'll realize how much we've done for you, and you'll wish you hadn't been so stubborn. I didn't look back. Here's the kicker, I posted about it. The next day, I shared the story on Reddit again. I detailed the meeting, how he tried to use money as an apology, and how nothing about his approach was genuine. It was clear that Ryan's apology wasn't an apology at all. It was a PR move, a shallow attempt to look good after the damage he and my family caused. And you know what? People in the comments ate him alive. They saw through the whole charade. They called it what it was, a poor, half-hearted attempt at saving face without taking responsibility. Some people even messaged me, suggesting I block him completely. That this wasn't about reconciliation, it was about him protecting his image. But here's the twist, Claire tried to step in. She sent me a long message, apologizing, sort of. She said she understood I was hurt, but then she blamed me for pushing everyone away. She said I was too angry and had too much resentment for them to ever really make things right. She suggested that I was holding on to the past and needed to let it go for the sake of family unity. She begged me to forgive Ryan and said that, after everything, she just wanted us to move on. I didn't respond. So, where does that leave me now? I'm still not going back. The apology was fake. The check was fake. The family unity is fake. I don't need to spend my life constantly trying to earn approval from people who never really cared. I don't know what the future holds with my family. Maybe they'll keep trying to fix things, but at this point, I don't think there's anything left to fix. I'm done chasing after love that wasn't ever really there. I'm building my own life now, and I refuse to let them back in unless they can prove they've actually changed, and not just because their reputation's on the line. The truth is, I've found peace in being free from the toxic dynamics. And that's the only apology I'll ever need.